Recorded.
Good morning. This morning I'm going to be discussing making generalizations. And I've subtitled this program, Everybody is Afraid of Something. And I've used that subtitle because that's my favorite generalization. I could tell you about what I'm afraid of, and you could trade a story about something that you are afraid of, and everybody else in the room might speak up about what they are afraid of. And from those stories, from those facts, we would group them together and we would make a generalization. And that would be everybody is afraid of something. The definition of a generalization is that a generalization is a broad statement about people, objects, things, or an event. A generalization takes something that is true in one specific case and extends it to every possible case. Now, why is this important? Well, the ability to generalize helps us to organize information. It kind of helps us to understand the world. We have isolated facts, and we learn those facts, and we speak about those facts. We then tend to group those facts together and make a generalization about what's true in similar situations. And that ability to generalize helps us to respond appropriately in future situations. The ability to generalize also helps us to communicate, because when we talk to each other, we do tend to talk about facts, but then at some point, each of us uses those facts to broaden our concepts and speak to each other about what we believe from those facts. Now, one thing it's important to notice is that a generalization is not a fact. A fact is a true statement. A generalization may or may not be true. So let's talk about a specific article that I'm going to read now. It's entitled, Why Poor People Are Getting Heavier. Hunger always has been the burden of the poor, but increasingly the highest rates of obesity are found among people with the lowest income and the least education. The reasons why encompass everything from genetics to personal habits to societal factors. One such societal factor is cheap, high-calorie foods. Research suggests that more calories a food contains per ounce, the less it costs, and vice versa. Compare, for example, potato chips and fresh carrots. $1 spent on chips or white bread, instant noodles, or candy doesn't buy much nutrition, but it does buy nearly 5 times as many calories. In this limited sense, diets composed of whole grains, fish, and fresh vegetables and fruit are far more expensive than refined grains, added sugars, and added fats, says researcher Adam Drunowski. People become obese primarily because they are poor. So did you see the generalization there? The generalization was in the last sentence. When Drunowski says, people become obese primarily because they are poor. Now, the rest of the passage did include facts. Fact number 1, the highest rates of obesity are found among people with the lowest income and the least education. Fact number 2 was, the more calories a food contains per ounce, the less it costs. So you put those together and you use it, you make a generalization. People become obese primarily because they are poor. So I want to go to another article. In this article, I took from this month's issue of National Geographic magazine, and it's titled, Staying Safe from COVID-19 Can Be an Unaffordable Luxury in the Crowded Settlements of Nairobi. And I'm going to read to you the first paragraph of that article. For most people in Kenya, life finds a way to go on despite COVID-19. But defending against the deadly virus is especially challenging in one of the world's most unequal countries. Almost 37% of the 53 million people there live on $1.90 or less a day. And self-quarantining can go only so far in a place where many rely on informal markets for food, medicine, and employment. So we have this article, this is the first paragraph, and in it we find a lot of facts. We find 4 facts at least. COVID-19 is a health concern in Kenya. Kenya is one of the world's most unequal countries. Fact number 3 is almost 37% of the 53 million people there live on $1.90 or less a day. And the 4th fact is Kenya's informal markets for food, medicine, and employment make it difficult for people to self-quarantine. So we have all these facts, and we'd like to make a generalization from that. So I'm going to give you 4 choices for a generalization from those facts. And our first choice is most people who live in Kenya are poor. And the second choice is many people who live in Kenya will contract COVID-19. Number 3, poverty makes it difficult for people to protect themselves from a communicable disease. And number 4 is life in Kenya has not changed because of COVID-19. Now, all of those facts, all of those possible generalizations do come from the facts. But there's one that's better than the other, and that is the third one. Poverty makes it difficult for people to protect themselves from communicable diseases. And I would like you to notice a couple of things about that generalization. And the first thing to notice is that most of the facts given in the passage are not unique to Kenya. There were some income specifics, but the overall meaning of those facts are broader than just Kenya. And the generalization, however, is based on the evidence from the passage. And then the third thing I'd like you to notice is that the generalization does not repeat the facts. If it repeated the facts, it would simply be a summary, but it's not. It's a broader thought, a bigger idea than just what was represented in the passage that we read. So how do you recognize a generalization? Well, a generalization is a big idea that glosses over details. A generalization does not repeat the information contained in the passage. And the generalization may use clue words that capture a big idea. And these clue words are like these: all, never, most, always, every, many, few, often. You can tell from these clue words, they are ones that take isolated facts and broaden them by saying all, never, most. It makes the idea that was, first of all, presented by isolated facts, and it makes it a larger idea. Now, one of the things we must do when we're talking about generalizations is we really have to look to see whether the generalization is valid or whether it's false. So we have to assess it according to, we can use the facts that we started with. Does it really clearly represent the facts? We can look at our own experience and see whether the generalization feels right. Does it square with how we experience things? And then we can test the generalization against the credibility of whoever is speaking or writing. I want to show you this one. This one is a passage called Going Abroad, and it's taken from the American Medical Association Family Medical Guide. It says, if you are planning a trip out of the country, make sure that you are adequately protected against any diseases that may occur in your country of destination. Most tropical and third world countries do not have comprehensive water or sewage systems. As a result, diseases associated with contaminated water supplies, for example, dysentery, typhoid, polio, are common. So did you see the generalization in that passage? I've got it here in bold. Most tropical and third world countries do not have comprehensive water or sewage systems. So we want to test that to see whether or not that generalization is valid or if it's a false generalization. And so we'll test it against the facts. Well, there weren't any facts there. It just was a bold generalization that just came out, seemed to come out of nowhere. And we have to ask whether or not it is consistent with our own experiences. Perhaps you've traveled to Mexico and you were very comfortable when you were there and you felt very secure and all the facilities that you'd used were modern and you had a really good time and you didn't get sick. So that may or may not square with your own experience of traveling in a tropical country. Finally, the credibility of the statement, the speaker, the writer. Well, as I said, this guide was published by the American Medical Association, so what better authority could we have on health than that? But what I didn't tell you was that this was a guide that was published in 1987. So if we pick up this guide today, we might find that that information, that generalization, is a little dated and not reliable. Now, one thing we have to look at when we're also looking at generalizations is the stereotype. We have to guard against a generalization that is masking a stereotype. A stereotype is an oversimplified image or idea about a particular type of person, place, or thing. So I want you to consider this. All old industrial cities are cold, rusty, and broken down. Cleveland was founded more than 200 years ago, and its economic base was steel and other types of heavy industry. Cleveland is an ugly city. Well, there's a stereotype there, and the stereotype is found when the speaker or the writer here says all, notice that clue word all, old industrial cities, and then describes the industrial cities as cold, rusty, and broken down. All of them are. That is a stereotype, and it's because you can differentiate a stereotype from a generalization. A stereotype is judgmental. There's a judgmental sound about old industrial cities and therefore about Cleveland. And against a generalization that would be just simply descriptive. Now, I grant you rusty, cold, broken down are descriptive, but they are formed in a judgmental statement. A stereotype too is hurtful, and I suppose you could admit, as I will, that being from Cleveland, if I hear that statement made, it's hurtful, it hurts me. A generalization, by contrast, is helpful. And a stereotype is rigid, where a generalization is flexible. By that, I mean a rigid, non-changing, forever kind of statement against one that suggests that it is a more flexible outlook. So I'm going to change what was written before and write instead. Cleveland was founded in 1796, and its economic base was steel and other types of heavy industry. Since age and industrial history of a place are visible in the style of its buildings and the appearance of its lakefront, Cleveland, like all old industrial cities, reflects its history. So this is, again, more of a generalization. You can see that I have incorporated the all old industrial cities. We love Pittsburgh. Well, some of us do, but we love Pittsburgh, St. Louis, Milwaukee, Chicago, old industrial cities. All can be described in these terms, that they reflect their history in their landscape and their buildings. So that's the difference between a stereotype and a generalization. Stereotype is to be avoided, and generalization is extremely useful. So that really concludes my program today. I want to end with a generalization. I'm going to say this. I hope this presentation was helpful as you prepare for the high school equivalency test. SEEDS has produced many online presentations since COVID-19 prevented students from attending in-person sessions. All SEEDS students can benefit from tuning in to the online classroom. So that's a generalization. It is my second favorite generalization, and I hope you enjoyed today's program. Thank you.